Chapter 17:16. Fengjiu looked at the Phoenix Guards fighting below and said, "Brother, I'm going to bring them out for a real battle. Since the Xianyuan Empire is being attacked by the other empires, I want to attack them from the shadows." "No problem," Guan Shilin said loudly. "Count me in, I'll go with you." She turned to look at him and smiled. "Okay." After about 2 hours, the Phoenix Guards stopped one by one under Fengjiu's command. They were panting. After the battle, they all had some scratches on their bodies. Even if they were knocked down by their opponents, they continued to stand up. Therefore, after a round of fighting, it was inevitable that they would be injured. "Bring all your teams back to rest. I have a mission for you in 2 days," Fengjiu said to them as he stood on a high ground. "Yes," everyone responded, and quickly left under the leadership of their respective team leaders. 2 days later, she left 10 Phoenix Guards, the black bear cub and green hare, to accompany her parents in the valley. The others were divided into several teams. Under the leadership of Du Fan, Guan Shilin and Fengjiu, they set off in 3 teams. They did not set off together. Instead, they set off separately. However, their destination was the same. It was one of the 8 great empires that was attacking the Xianyuan Empire. On the other side, in the palace of the Xianyuan Empire, Xianyuan Mose received a message from Yin Dian from Fengjiu. When he found out that she had come out of seclusion and was heading towards the 8 great empires, he was still a little worried. The message did not mention how strong she was now. However, under normal circumstances, from the peak of the nascent soul stage, one would naturally be at the fairy stage. He felt that no matter how outstanding Fengjiu's cultivation talent was, and with the help of pills, her strength would only be at the peak of the fairy stage. Although the peak of the fairy stage was not weak, if those people were to target her again, they would definitely gang up on her. Huilang saw that he was deep in thought after reading the message, and did not respond for a long time. Huilang secretly moved 2 steps forward and took a look. After reading the message in the letter, he grinned. "Master, the ghost doctor is coming over? If she appears again, her strength must be stronger than before. If she comes, she can help Master a little. Master should be happy. Why are you frowning?" The strength of a fairy realm cultivator can't be said to be very strong. Those people looked for her for a few months and didn't find any news, so they moved their eyes away. If they knew that she had appeared again, they definitely wouldn't let her go so easily. Xianyuan Mose said in a deep voice. He tapped his fingers on the table, making a knocking sound. Due to the involvement of the upstream forces in this matter, he was unable to settle this matter even after half a year. If it was in the past, those empires wouldn't have dared to continue pressuring them like this. However, they had the backing of the upper echelons now, so they naturally didn't fear the Xianyuan Empire. Conversely, if they were able to take down those empires and divide them up, then it would naturally be extremely beneficial to them. In the past half a year, Yin Dian's forces had been destroyed, and his father was in such a state. The internal and external turmoil of the Xianyuan Empire was too great, and with the interference of the upstream forces, it was impossible to stabilize the situation in a short period of time. Chapter 17:17. Xianyuan Mose remained silent. He knew that he could only wait for her arrival. However, what he didn't know was that although Fengjiu and the others came to the 8 great empires, they weren't going to the Xianyuan Empire. Instead, they were going to the Qishui Empire, one of the 4 empires that were besieging the Xianyuan Empire. Ever since the Qishui Empire's marriage failed, and they returned with their tails between their legs, they held a grudge against the Xianyuan Empire. Especially Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu, the crown prince and the 3rd princess of Qishui province, had suffered losses at their hands. Therefore, when it came to dealing with the Xianyuan Empire, the Qishui province contributed the most. Therefore, after about a month's journey, Fengjiu and the others, who were the first to arrive at the Qishui Empire, sneaked into the Qishui imperial city and laid in ambush. On one hand, they were gathering information. On the other hand, they were waiting for the arrival of Guan Shilin and Du Fan. In the Qishui Imperial Palace, Prince Qishui and the 3rd princess were discussing matters with their father in the main hall. "Father, Now that the Xianyuan Empire is attacked from both sides, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to destroy them? Prince Qishui asked in confusion. That's right, father. This is the time to raise the prestige of our Qishui Empire. That old man Xianyuan is already a cripple, so we don't need to fear him. The most difficult one to deal with right now is Xianyuan Mose. However, with the strength of your empire, the other three empires, and the backing behind them, I think it's about time. Thinking of the humiliation she suffered when the engagement was broken off, she gritted her teeth in anger. That Fengjie was said to be the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. Now the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed by the experts behind them. The entire imperial palace was destroyed, and even that Fengjie was hiding somewhere. She had vented her anger, but that Xianyuan Mose. Thinking that Xianyuan Mose was still guarding the imperial palace of the Xianyuan Empire, she felt resentment, but also admiration. That man not only had the looks of a celestial being, he also had extremely outstanding abilities. Unfortunately, he was blind. He didn't want a peerless beauty with status like her, and instead fell in love with the princess of an inferior country, Fengjie. He helped her humiliate them, and trampled them under his feet. From then on, she knew that the Qishui Empire and the Xianyuan Empire were irreconcilable enemies. It all depended on who had the ability to stand at the end and become the leader of the nations. Now, with the help of the forces behind them, it would be extremely easy for them to become the leader of the countries. Hihi, do you think that Xianyuan Mose is an ordinary person? The monarch of the Qishui Empire chuckles and looks at his son and daughter. Since the internal strife in the Xianyuan Empire, how many of you have survived? He stood up and strode into the great hall with his hands clasped behind his back. Besides, let's not talk about his own strength and cultivation. You should be able to tell that Xianyuan Mose is the most difficult one to deal with just from the fact that he's still alive after suffering from the Millennium Ice poison. Hearing this, the brother and sister can't help but look at each other without saying anything. If an ordinary person is poisoned by the Millennium Frost poison, they will die after 3 times. But his Millennium Frost poison has been around for a long time, and he can still cure it. Tell me, do you think we can kill a person like him just because we want to? Chapter 17:18. What is his cultivation level? The siblings looked at each other and said, based on his age and talent, he should be a fairy realm master. A fairy realm master? Ha ha ha. The lord of Qishui province smiled and shook his head. You don't even know what level he is at, and you want to kill him? Don't know? She had always thought that Xianyuan Mose was a fairy realm master. After all, a fairy realm master was the strongest existence she had ever encountered. Father, could it be that he is not a fairy realm master? Prince Qishui clenched his fists, feeling resentful and unwilling. Xianyuan Mose was a crown prince, and so was he. However, there was a huge difference between the two of them. It was as if he had always been suppressed by Xianyuan Mose. As far as I know, Xianyuan Mose's bestial cultivation level is definitely higher than the fairy realm. He paused, then continued. However, if he is not at the fairy realm, then he might be at the celestial saint level. However, even I have never seen a celestial saint. His voice was filled with emotion. If it is difficult to cultivate to the celestial saint level, then it is really a step into the celestial world. The strength of a celestial saint is equivalent to the strength of 100 fairy realm masters. Xianyuan Mose's strength is what we have always been afraid of. Do you think that although we have the support of the upstream forces, when we are really in danger, the people from the upstream forces will save us? He shook his head and said, You are too naive, too naive. We have teamed up with a few empires, but no one has really attacked. No matter which country attacks, it will definitely be the one that suffers the most losses. If we attack first, our empire will suffer the most losses. If the people from the other countries take the opportunity to attack, then wouldn't it be a waste of effort? He was an emperor, a ruler of a country. He thought further than them. They only thought about the present, but he thought about the future. The people from the upper reaches didn't make a move, but allowed them to do it. The empires pushed each other aside, because they didn't want to fight with the people from Yandian. Whoever rushed out first would definitely be the one to die the most. Then what should we do? Are we just going to keep waiting like this? Prince Chishui asked, somewhat unwilling to give up. Of course not. The governor of Chishui province said, I've sent a letter to the other 3 countries in the name of the upstream forces, telling them to each send out a troop. When the time comes, the 4 countries will mobilize their troops at the same time and attack the Xianyuan Empire in one fell swoop, directly dividing their territory. Hearing this, Prince Chishui and the 3rd princess were excited. Father, is there anything you need us to do? Please give me your orders. The governor of Chishui province laughed and waved his hand. Just you wait. When the time comes, all of you will be there. Yes. The 2 of them replied in unison. Seeing their imperial father walk out, they followed him. On a branch in the palace, the fire phoenix, who had shrunk into a small bird, was standing on a branch. She heard their conversation and watched them leave. Then, she flapped her wings and left, preparing to report back to Fengjiu. In a small forest on the outskirts of Chishui Imperial City, Fengjiu and the others set up camp and rested. Tun Yin lay beside Fengjiu with half-closed eyes, while Lao Bai had shrunk into a small white snake and was sleeping on a branch. Chapter 17-19. Seeing the fire phoenix fly back, Fengjiu reached out her hand and let the fire phoenix land in her hand. How is it? Did you hear anything? She asked softly. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and said, Yes, the old man from Chishui province said that he wants to join forces with a few other countries to attack the Xianyuan Empire. It told Fengjiu everything it heard in the palace and waited for her next order. Hearing the fire phoenix's words, Fengjiu curled the corners of her lips and revealed a cold smile. This old man was indeed wishful thinking. Since he wasn't afraid of death, she would start with him. She ordered everyone to hide first, and sent the fire phoenix to the palace to keep an eye on them. The others waited for Guan Shilin and Du Fan's teams to arrive. They waited for 2 days. 2 days later in the evening, Guan Shilin and Du Fan led their teams to a small forest. When the phoenix guard who was watching them saw them, he brought them to Fengjiu. When Guan Shilin saw Fengjiu, he strode forward and asked with a smile, Xiaojiu, when did you guys arrive? We flew the whole way here. I didn't expect to be later than you guys. Master. Du Fan, Feng Wei, and the others bowed respectfully. Fengjiu glanced at them and smiled. We arrived 2 days earlier than you guys. Did everything go well? Nothing happened on the way, it was good. They smiled and said. Fengjiu nodded. Let's all rest for a while. I will tell you guys what happened next. Thus, everyone sat down around the fire under the tree and looked at him, waiting for his next words. Since everyone is here, I plan to make a move tomorrow night. We don't need to make a big move, mainly an assassination. As long as the person in power in Chishui province is dead, then Chishui province will be in a state of disunity. At that time, they won't even be able to take care of themselves, so they won't have time to deal with the Xianyuan Empire. After that, Fengjiu explained the details of the plan to them and asked, Do you guys remember everything? Well, remember. Everyone responded in a loud and powerful voice. Very good. Let's take the time to rest after eating something. She gestured for Leng Hua and Leng Shuang to distribute the roasted meat to everyone. She got up and walked around. Seeing this, Guan Shilin followed her and said, Xiaojiu, did you tell Mose that we're here? Fengjiu looked back and smiled. He probably only knows that we're in the 8 great empires, but he doesn't know that we're in Chishui province. She wanted to give him a surprise and help him solve this potential problem. Guan Shilin shook his head and smiled. Then he's probably worried now. He doesn't know that you're already at the peak of the sage immortal realm. I think he probably thinks that you're at the peak of the fairy realm. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. He'll receive the news soon. Once she killed the monarch of Chishui province and destroyed half of his forces in the imperial city, he would naturally receive the news. Moreover, he wouldn't be the only one who would know. The people from the other countries would know as well. When that time came, they would be nervous and on guard. After all, the monarch of Chishui province was a cultivator at the mid-stage of the fairy realm. Chapter 17-20. The next day, at night, Fengjiu and Guan Shilin led a group of people and sneaked into the palace. The others were led by Luo Yu and the others to make other arrangements. They entered through the side door of the palace. After taking care of the guards, they let the Phoenix guards replace them to guard the room, while the others went inside. After half a year of training, the Phoenix guards' skills and ability to hide their presence were top-notch. They hid in the dark, and even though there were many guards in the palace, they were unable to discover them. The Fire Phoenix, who had been waiting in the palace for a long time, knew of their arrival and flew over. The Lord of Chishui Province is in the palace in front. Follow me. As it spoke, it led the way for them. Fire Phoenix, have you done what I asked you to do? Fengjiu asked in a low voice. It's been done since this morning. The effects of the medicine should be taking effect soon. The Fire Phoenix turned around and said. She had asked it to put a colorless and odorless medicine in the water, so that the cultivator's spiritual energy would dissipate without them noticing. Calculating the time, the medicine should be taking effect soon. Very good. Fengji revealed a satisfied smile. This way it would be effortless. The Lord of Chishui Province, who did not know that danger was approaching, was currently hugging a voluptuous and beautiful concubine in the palace. He was touching her up and down, causing her to pant. My lord, don't. You're still reading the memorials. A voluptuous woman dressed in a lotus-colored chiffon dress had a delicate and charming appearance. She sat on the Chishui monarch's lap with one hand around his neck, and the other half covering the chiffon in front of her chest, covering half of her exposed body. Her slender waist swayed slightly, and a pair of slender white legs were faintly discernible under the chiffon dress. She was half unwilling, half angry and half bashful, and her beautiful eyes were filled with a seductive charm. No memorials can compare to you, my beloved concubine. Come, let me kiss you. The Lord of Chishui Province touched her buttocks with one hand, and used the other to pull away the hand covering her chest. He then lowered his head, and buried his face in her voluptuous bosom. Ah, your majesty! Her coquettish voice was infinitely captivating. The beautiful eyes of the well-developed beauty in his arms, her enchanting body, and the soft, smooth, and plump feeling all made his heart ripple. He only felt the evil fire rising, and he immediately carried her to the big bed inside. He tossed the woman in his arms onto the bed, tore off his clothes, and pounced on her. However, at this moment, a long sword emitting a cold glint appeared silently and rested on the monarch's neck. What a good mood! A mocking voice rang out in the room, sounding very strange. That voice startled the Lord of Chishui Province. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, extinguishing the evil fire in his body. All that was left was fear. Who was it? Who was it that could appear in his palace so noiselessly? Who was it? Who was it that dared to place a sword on his neck, as if there was no one else around? Moreover, he actually didn't notice the arrival of others at all. To be able to go undetected, could this person's cultivation be higher than his? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, especially in such an embarrassing situation. Chapter 1721. He watched as the concubine beneath him died with her eyes wide open. The Lord of Chishui Province was terrified. Who are you? He turned his head, and when he saw the person holding the sword behind him, the first thing that flashed across his eyes was surprise. That person was dressed in a dazzling red robe, and exuded an ethereal aura. That androgynous face had a devilish charm to it. Faintly, the Lord of Chishui seemed to see the red-robed person raise her eyebrows, and curl her lips slightly, as she looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Do you recognize who I am? Fengjiu asked. She pressed down harder on the long sword, and slashed a wound on the Lord of Chishui Province's neck, causing a trace of blood to seep out. The piercing pain caused the Lord of Chishui Province to come back to his senses. Looking at the person in front of him, a thought flashed through his mind. You're Fengjiu. It was said that Fengjiu had a peerless appearance, liked to dress in red, and wielded the Qingfeng sword. The person in front of him was dressed in red, and had a peerless appearance. The sword pressed against his neck was the Qingfeng sword. If it was not Fengjiu, who else could it be? That's right. Since you recognize me, then you can die. Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile, and a cold light flashed across her eyes. She turned the tip of her sword, and instantly pierced into his dantian. Hiss! At the last moment, the Lord of Chishui province wanted to take a gamble. Unexpectedly, he was unable to circulate his spiritual aura. He originally wanted to dodge, but he was unable to do so. He took the full brunt of the sword. He only felt that the Qingfeng sword had pierced through his dantian and destroyed his life force. He wanted to use his nascent soul to escape, but he could not do so. His body stiffened as he stared at her. His heart was filled with hatred and unwillingness. He was unwilling to die just like that. However, he swallowed his last breath and fell straight to the ground. Fengjiu pulled back her sword and looked at the Lord of Chishui province who had died with his eyes wide open. She sneered. "Don't worry, your son and daughter will accompany you very soon." She turned around and walked out. She ordered, "Take his corpse and hang it at the entrance of the palace." Yes. 2 phoenix guards flashed in from the darkness and dragged the corpse out. When Guan Xilin, who was standing guard outside, saw her come out, he said, "The 2 fairy realm cultivators hiding in the dark have been dealt with. We can go to Prince Chishui now." "And let's go," she replied and led them to their next destination. Prince Chishui was practicing martial arts in the training field. Ever since he was humiliated in the Xianyuan Empire, he had been working hard to improve his strength and cultivation. Seeing that the Xianyuan Empire was about to be destroyed, he was extremely excited. After destroying the Xianyuan Empire, he would trample on Xianyuan Mo's. As for the Fengjiu who was rumored to be Xianyuan Mo's woman, he also wanted to find her, imprisoning her, and making her his slave. Bang bang bang. After a series of kicks, the 8 shadow guards fell down one by one. They groaned and couldn't stand up for a long time. "Useless. The 8 of you are useless." Prince Chishui flung his sleeves. His sharp eyes swept across the 8 people on the ground. "Stand up and continue." The 8 shadow guards supported each other and stood up. They felt that the spiritual energy in their bodies was draining away. They were somewhat frightened. "Your Highness, our bodies seem to be a little strange." "Yes, me too. It seems that I can't use my spiritual energy," another person said. "That's right. It's the same for me." Another person nodded. Chi. Chapter 1722. Maybe you're just lucky that you haven't drunk the water in the palace yet. A voice came just like that, startling everyone and causing them to turn around. When Prince Chishui heard that voice, his heart trembled. He looked at the figure in red walking out of the darkness in disbelief, and cried out in a low voice, "Fengjiu, you actually came to our Red Water Palace. How dare you?" After recovering from his shock, Prince Chishui stared at the red figure with a strong desire to possess her. "You came at the right time. The crown prince was just thinking about you." He sneered sinisterly and glanced at Guan Xilin, who was following her, and the dozen people behind her. "Pft! How dare you come to my Red Water Palace with such a small number of people? Fengjiu, you're too arrogant. Today, I'll make sure that none of you can escape. Do it. Except for the one in red. Kill the rest on the spot." However, as soon as he finished speaking, he didn't see any movement. Only Fengjiu's chuckle could be heard as he slowly walked over. He angrily looked back and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear me?" Halfway through his words, his voice suddenly stopped, because the secret guards who were training with him all fell to the ground with pale faces. Their foreheads were covered with cold sweat, but none of them could move. At this moment, he thought of what they had said before, and what Fengjiu had said. Thinking that she was proficient in medicine, he couldn't help but feel shocked. He angrily glared at her. "You drugged them. TSK, TSK, TSK. You only realized it now." Fengjiu shook his head and stopped walking. "Brother, this person is for you to practice." "Okay." Guan Xilin responded in a deep voice. He strode forward and rushed out like a tiger. He waved his fist and fiercely hit Prince Chishui with a sharp wind blade. A powerful pressure came, causing the Chishui crown prince to be startled. He quickly became vigilant. He raised the spirit energy in his body, wanting to receive the punch. Who would have thought that the moment his spirit energy collided with the opponent's profound energy, the 2 streams of energy bounced off each other. His spirit energy was devoured, and the profound energy closed in, sending him flying. Bang! Ah! That punch landed heavily on his chest with a bang. Profound energy spread out in his body, and in that instant, it was as if his internal organs were covered by the aura of profound energy. Then cracking sounds could be heard. Hiss. Ah. A miserable shriek rang out. Just a single punch had injured his internal organs, making it so that he could no longer stand up. Just a single punch had destroyed his dantian, causing him to lie on the ground like a cripple, unable to resist at all. Guan Shilin waved his hand and snorted. Prince Qishui, that's all there is to it. Feng Jiu's lips curled into a smile. That's all there is to it. Being ridiculed in front of his face, Prince Qishui was ashamed and angry, but his heart was also overwhelmed with shock. He was no match for them. Moreover, he was crippled with one punch. Looking at them, they definitely wouldn't let him go just like that. At that moment, he couldn't stand up from the ground. As he retreated, he gritted his teeth and crushed the jade token that his imperial father had given him. As long as the jade token was crushed, his imperial father would know. At that time, these people would be doomed. Chapter 1723. That person who was naked from head to toe, with only a pair of bright yellow underwear. Who else could it be other than their monarch? Monarch, monarch. One of the secret guards muttered. His entire body was in a state of panic. Just you wait, my royal father will be here soon. Once my royal father arrives, none of you will be able to escape. Prince Qishui forcefully endured the intense pain in his body, his face deathly pale as he threatened. Feng Jiu and Guan Shilin both stood there and looked at him. They did not stop him from crushing the jade pendant to ask for help, because they had already dealt with the people in the palace, and some of the people hiding in the shadows. What use would the remaining guards be? Even the monarch was dead, and he wanted to ask for help? Haha. Then there would still need to be someone to save him. Your Highness, the monarch is over there. One of the secret guards trembled as he pointed behind Feng Jiu, pointing at the two phoenix guards standing in the darkness, dragging a person in their hands. Prince Qishui looked in the direction he was pointing at, and when he saw it he was shocked. You killed my royal father. How is this possible? How is this possible? That's right. I killed him. And it just so happened that your royal father was having sex with a concubine. So I stabbed him with my sword, and he died just like that, without any effort at all. Feng Jiu said casually, looking at his frightened face, and laughed. Do you still have anyone to ask for help? I don't mind killing the person who will save you in the future. You demon. You. He cursed loudly, wanting to escape, but found that he could not escape at all. His golden core was shattered, his internal organs were damaged, and with Feng Jiu and the others watching, how could he escape? Demon? Haha. She sneered and looked at him. You didn't want to live a good life, but you had to go against us, and ended up like this. Who do you blame? If you want to blame someone, blame the person who was your backer. Guan Shilin strode forward and grabbed Prince Qishui. Don't talk nonsense with him, just kill him. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Prince Qishui on the top of his head. No, don't. However, with a bang, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices and his eyes were wide open. With that slap, his life force was cut off, and he fell limply to the ground. Even in death his eyes were still wide open. Take him away. Guan Shilin threw the Qishui crown prince's corpse to the phoenix guards. There is one of us. Feng Jiu's eyes as he turned and left. To the palace. An hour later, the palace was on fire, and the fire was out of control, shocking the people inside and outside the city. When they rushed to the palace gate, they were shocked again. There were 3 corpses hanging at the gate of the palace, and those 3 corpses were none other than the governor of Qishui province, Prince Qishui, and the most beloved 3rd young master of Qishui province. For a moment, the entire Qishui empire was shaken. On this night, no one escaped from the palace alive, and all the treasures in the palace, whether it was spiritual medicine or precious treasures, were all taken away. The Qishui empire was too chaotic, and the governor of Qishui province was dead, and the others took the opportunity to seize power. Therefore, the entire Qishui empire quickly fell into a crisis of power struggle. Chapter 1724. When Xianyuan Mose received the news, it was already a few days later. In the Xianyuan palace, he stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky outside. He sighed inwardly. No wonder she didn't come when he was waiting for her here. She went to the Qishui Empire. She was too reckless. After standing in the palace for a while, he called out, Huilang. Master. Huilang walked in from outside and bowed to him. He asked with a grin, Master, what are your orders? Xianyuan Mose glanced at Huilang, who was grinning foolishly. The corner of his mouth twitched imperceptibly. He looked away and said in a deep voice, Take a group of people to help Fengjiu. Ah. Huilang was stunned. Go where? Master, do you know which empire the ghost doctor will target next? Of the 3 remaining empires, which one do you think she will attack first? He looked at the sky outside with deep eyes. Huilang thought for a while and said, Eastern Glory Empire is the strongest among the 3 remaining empires. I think the ghost doctor will stay until the end. As for the other 2, one is farther away from Qishui province, and the other is closer to Qishui. Therefore, I think the ghost doctor will destroy the empire closer to Qishui. Is that so? Hearing this, Huilang was surprised and asked, Isn't it so? Did his master think that the ghost doctor wouldn't attack the empire closer to her? Take a group of people and wait for her in Eastern Glory Empire. He ordered in a deep voice. Huilang was stunned, but didn't ask any more questions. He respectfully replied, Yes. Since his master said so, he would do as he was told. Therefore he bowed and retreated. After transferring a team of people, he informed Ding Yi and headed for the Eastern Glory Empire. In the pitch-black night, Tianshan Mountain was covered in white. Under the reflection of the white snow, the light became clearer. On the summit of Heaven Mountain, the white-robed elder of heavenly secrets stood with his hands behind his back. He gazed at the dazzling stars in the night sky, sighing in amazement as he murmured that as expected of the phoenix star, she was actually able to easily resolve a heaven-defying tribulation. Truly inconceivable, truly inconceivable. Master. Emo Chen, who was also dressed in white, walked over and stood behind him. Emo Chen, go to her side. She will be the one to break through your life and death tribulation. He turned around and looked at Emo Chen as he spoke. Upon hearing this, Emo Chen was slightly startled. He asked, Didn't Shizhuan say that I would only be allowed to leave the mountain after she had broken through her own heaven-defying tribulation? Could it be that she has already cracked it? It had only been half a year, but he had heard that the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed. That night, the fire had burned everything in the Phoenix Imperial Palace. Even the old Master Feng and his wife had perished in the flames. Furthermore, the old Master Feng's youngest son had become food in the stomach of a ferocious beast. As for Fengjiu, she had taken her parents and the remaining Phoenix guards to a faraway place. For half a year, there had been no news of her at all. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. During this period of time, even the Xianyuan Empire was under attack from many sides and was in a state of turmoil. The war between the 8 empires seemed to be on the verge of breaking out at any moment. Even the cultivators in various places could feel the atmosphere of mutual hostility. At this time, his master had suddenly asked him to leave the mountain. Could it be that she was about to appear? Chapter 1725. As Elder Tianji spoke, he stroked his beard and looked at the dazzling star in the sky. Do you see it? The star of the phoenix has appeared again, and it's even brighter than before. Master is certain that the heaven-defying tribulation on her should have been dissolved by her own hands. Master, then are her grandfather and the others really dead? Imochen couldn't help but ask. Life and death, death and life. Life is death, death is life. Go down the mountain. He strode away and walked back. Step by step, he stepped on the snow without leaving a trace, leaving only his faint voice echoing under the starry sky. Imochen watched as his figure gradually disappeared into the distance. Only when it disappeared did he retract his gaze and look at the dazzling star in the night sky. After a long while, he walked into the courtyard and prepared to pack his things and go down the mountain early tomorrow morning. On the other side, in the upper reaches of the continent in the courtyard, Sushi supported the pale Feng Sanyuan as they walked around, basking in the sun. After walking for a while, she helped him lie down on the bed in the courtyard. Be careful, Sushi said as she covered him with a thin blanket. I wonder how Yi-er is now. I wonder if Feng girl has found him? Half a year has passed, are they well? Feng Sanyuan said slowly, his voice weak. Half a year ago, when he closed his eyes in the great fire, he thought he wouldn't be able to live. He didn't expect that when he opened his eyes again, he would still be able to see this world and his wife. What he didn't expect was that the person who saved them would be someone he didn't expect, Morong Yixian. Didn't young Master Morong say that there are upper reaches of the continent? Right now there are upstream powers watching them. Little Nine and the others should have already hidden themselves. No news is good news for us. At least we know that they are safe, Sushi said softly, comforting him softly. Even though she was also worried, she knew that it was useless to worry. Right now they weren't in the 8 great empires, nor were they in the Phoenix dynasty. They were in the upper reaches of the continent, a continent that they would never have thought they would come to. Back then, the person who saved them in the Great Fire was actually the Prince of Glorious Sun Country's Morong royal family, Morong Yixian. A person that she had only heard of, but never expected to see, had appeared just like that to save them. Later on, he said that the palace that was on fire that day was his original palace, and there was a secret passage inside. He thought of going in through the secret passage to take a look when he was passing by the Phoenix dynasty. He didn't expect that he would save them by accident. Master, madam, young master is here. A maidservant serving in the courtyard came in to report, and then retreated. Hearing this, the couple looked at each other, thinking that they had to ask around this time to see if there was any news about Fengjiu recently. After all, the last time Morong Yishuan came over, he also brought news, but it was not good news. Although they were in the upper reaches of the continent, through Morong Yixian, they also knew that the Phoenix dynasty had been destroyed. It was also because they knew how powerful the enemy was that they were quietly recuperating here, and didn't rush back impulsively. They were afraid that something like this would happen again and make them worry. But even so, they felt that every day was like a year in this place. Chapter 1726. He wore a simple white robe, and his black hair was tied up with a jade crown. He wore a jade pendant and a white jade flute at his waist. His steps were slow and steady. Following behind him was a black-clothed guard. Grandpa Feng, old madam. Morong Yixian bowed to the two as he entered the courtyard. Have a seat. The old man gestured. Looking at the elegant young master in white, he sighed in his heart. Back then, after the Phoenix dynasty was established, he disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace. Who would have thought that in the end, they would meet again under such circumstances? And he was even the one who saved them. Thinking back, he also thought highly of him and Xiaojiu as a couple. Unfortunately, alright. Morong Yixian nodded and sat down at the table. He looked at the two and asked gently, Are you two feeling better? Have you taken your medicine on time? Hearing this, Sushi said, I've made young Master Morong worry. My injuries have healed. Sun Yuan's injuries were too severe. He hasn't gotten better, even after recuperating for half a year. This is all my fault. I left the two of you here and rarely came to visit. He said apologetically, Our lives were saved by you. We'll definitely repay this debt of gratitude in the future. Feng Sanyuan said. Grandpa Feng, don't say that. He shook his head and said, I've played with Qing Gu in the manor since I was young. I've always treated Grandpa Feng as my own grandfather. Although I couldn't stop the things that happened later, I know that I can't blame anyone else. Just like this time, I'm very happy to have accidentally saved Grandpa Feng and old madam. He looked at the two and smiled. Actually, I've come this time because I have news to tell the two of you. The two of them looked at each other and asked, Do you have news about Xiaojiu? Morong Yixian nodded and said, Recently, I was ordered by my master to go down the mountain to handle some matters. I heard a piece of news, and I felt that this matter might be related to Fengjiu, so I came to tell you. Moreover, I sent a letter to Xianyuan Mo's to inform them of your whereabouts. It's been half a year. and those people aren't keeping a close eye on us anymore. Furthermore, I heard that an empire was recently destroyed overnight. I'm guessing that Fengjiu is behind this. I think that if the two of you want to go back, you should be able to take a look after your bodies have recovered. The two of them were surprised. You're saying that we can go back now? He replied with a smile. You can go back, but I hope that you can wait until your injuries have healed. That way, even if you encounter any trouble on the way, it can be solved. Alright, we got it. When they returned, they would first go to the Xianyuan Empire to look for Xianyuan Mose. He should know where Fengjiu was. Moreover, as long as they asked him, they should be able to know if Yi was with them. Morong Yixian stood up and said, I still have to return to the mountain to report. I'll take my leave now. You won't stay for long, right? You're leaving already? Feng Sanyuan asked as he looked at Morong Yixian. His heart was indescribably complicated. No, I still have matters to attend to. I can't delay. He smiled and turned to leave. Chapter 1727. Feng Sanyuan looked at the sky and said slowly, This is unavoidable. The danger that should come will still come. The main thing is how we deal with it. Among the 8 great empires, the other 3 empires were also in a state of vigilance and fear, especially when they thought about the scene of the Qishui Empire's monarch dying naked and being hung at the entrance of the imperial city after his death. Even though they did not see it with their own eyes, every time they thought about it, they felt anxious and uneasy. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire, which was the closest to the Qishui Empire, was currently in the palace, asking the people he sent out to investigate, It's been so many days. Haven't you found anything? The person kneeling in the palace did not dare to raise his head and said, Monarch, there are no clues in Qishui province. We don't know who did it. The crown prince of the Xianyuan Empire, Xianyuan Mose, has always been in the empire and has never left. The Yin Palace's forces are guarding the Xianyuan Empire tightly. It's not the Yin Palace's people who did it. Hearing this, the monarch of the Luoyue Empire's monarch did not feel relieved. If it was not Xianyuan Mose who did it, then who could it be? He could definitely conclude that this force was helping the Xianyuan Empire. Otherwise, they would not have attacked the Qishui Empire at this time. The monarch of Qishui province, who was a fairy realm expert, was killed without anyone knowing. Every time he thought about this, he could not sleep well. Would there be a person standing beside his bed one night who wanted to take his life? Useless things. Leave. He waved his hand and shouted anxiously. The people kneeling in the main hall could only respond respectfully, and then leave. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire paced back and forth in the palace. Not long after, he shouted again, Men! Monarch! 2 people came in and bowed respectfully. Add another patrol team. Don't let even a mosquito into the palace. The monarch of the Luoyue Empire ordered. Yes. The 2 men left and gave the order to add another patrol team to the palace. This was the 3rd time the monarch had issued such an order. One could only imagine how anxious the monarch was right now. In the Dongyao Empire, although the people sent out didn't find anything, the emperor of the Dongyao Empire wrote down the names of many possible culprits on a piece of paper and checked them himself. Finally, he circled the name Fengjiu. Looking at that name, a chilling killing intent flashed across the Dongyao monarch's gloomy eyes. Apart from this Fengjiu, who else among the 8 great empires and the forces of the lower continents would risk offending them, and the forces of the upper continents to help Xianyuan Mose? I just didn't expect that after being silent for half a year, when everyone thought that Fengjiu had gone into hiding in fear, she would appear again. He muttered in a low voice, his voice filled with viciousness. Since you dare to appear again, then this time, I must take your head and present it to the people above. Since the higher-ups wanted her head, then he would take her head and give it to them. Give her head as a gift. This Fengjiu was known as the Ghost Doctor. It was said that she was extremely famous in the 1st to 9th grade countries. Pfft! How famous could she be? She was just a woman who knew a little about medicine. A little girl who had never seen the world dared to call herself the Ghost Doctor, and said that she had medical skills that could bring the dead back to life. She even dared to offend the higher-ups. How arrogant. Chapter 1728. However, at this moment he would never know, nor would he believe, that not long after, this woman whom he looked down upon would personally end his life. Under Xianyuan Mo's orders, Hui Lang had arrived at the Eastern Glory Empire's imperial city ahead of everyone else. He sat on a tree and sighed. The ghost doctor will come here? Master didn't even get the slightest bit of news, and made us come here to wait. What if we waited for nothing? Boss, maybe the ghost doctor will really come here. Master's words shouldn't be wrong. A man in black beside him said. That's because you don't know. Master is purely guessing. Hui Lang rolled his eyes at him and said, I was still thinking that if I could meet the ghost doctor, I could kill to my heart's content with her. If not, we can only wait here. As he spoke, he didn't wait for the man in black to speak and continued. Moreover, I feel that if I were the ghost doctor, I would first attack the Luoyue Empire. Why would I go around and attack Eastern Glory Empire first? Boss, didn't you always say that the ghost doctor isn't an ordinary person? Maybe she's different from what we think. The man in black said. Go away. He waved his hand. When I said that she's not an ordinary person, I meant that she's a little perverted. Her way of thinking and doing things is different from normal people. You're the perverted one. Suddenly a voice sounded, scaring Hui Lang. He fell from the tree and after steadying himself he shouted, Who is it? On the branch, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew up. You wolf, why didn't you stay put? What are you doing here? You even said that Xiaojiu is a pervert? You're in trouble. As she spoke, the fire phoenix flapped her wings and flew back. When Hui Lang heard this and recognized that the little bird was the fire phoenix, he was instantly delighted. Fire phoenix! You bastard! Why didn't you say anything when you came? Since you're here, does that mean the ghost doctor is here too? She's really here? Ha 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 ha. When the men in black heard this, they were alarmed and startled. That little bird was the ghost doctor's ancient mythical beast, the fire phoenix? Boss, it seems to be saying that it wants to report to the ghost doctor. A man in black whispered. Hui Lang was startled and hurriedly chased after it. Fire phoenix, don't get agitated. Come. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a good chat. What's there to talk about with a wolf like you? The fire phoenix snorted, flapped its wings and flew forward. Grey Wolf asked the people behind him to stay where they were and followed them. Soon, he saw Feng 9 and the others resting about 500 meters away. Ghost Doctor. I. Seeing that it was Hui Lang, the Fengjiu was also startled. Your master sent you here? He actually knew that she was coming to Dongyao. Yes, master asked me to come and help you. Ghost Doctor, you don't know this, but master has been waiting for you to go to the Xianyuan Empire. Who knew that you'd destroyed the governor of Chishui province? He's very worried about you, so he sent me here. Chapter 1729. Fire Phoenix glanced at him and said to Fengjiu. He said you're a pervert. I heard him badmouthing you just now. Upon hearing this, Hui Lang hurriedly waved his hands. No, I definitely didn't badmouth you. I was praising you. You have to believe me. Fengjiu glanced at him with a faint smile, but did not say much. He only asked, when did you guys arrive? A few days. We've been waiting for you here. I was wondering if you'd gone to the Luoyue Kingdom. As he spoke, he glanced at the Phoenix guards behind him and asked curiously, Ghost Doctor, how did their strength advance so quickly? They've been working hard for the past 6 months. It's not strange for them to have such strength, Fengjiu said with a smile. I was shocked to see them have such strength in half a year. Besides their advancement, your strength seems to have increased too, right? Are you at the peak of the fairy realm? Fengjiu smiled. No, I'm at the peak of the fairy sage realm. Ah, what? You're already at the peak of the fairy sage realm? That's incredible. How did you do it? It's only been half a year. Even Master didn't expect you to have advanced to the peak of the fairy sage realm. He's still worried about you. As Hui Lang spoke, he looked at her in disbelief. Then he said matter-of-factly, but it makes sense. If you weren't at your level, how could you have killed the monarch of Chishui province so easily? Fengjiu smiled and asked, how many people did you bring with you? Grey Wolf grinned and said, I only brought 20 people, but each and every one of them is an expert that can fight against 10 people. They're right in front. Ghost Doctor, you can follow me to rest. Alright, lead the way. Fengjiu gestured. Thus, everyone followed Hui Lang into the small forest. When the men in black who were already waiting there saw them walk over, they immediately went up and bowed. Greetings, Ghost Doctor. Fengjiu nodded and said, You don't have to be so courteous. He then turned around and instructed the Phoenix Guards. Take a rest. Luoyu stepped forward and said, Master, I'll bring some people to hunt some game back. Go. Be careful, Fengjiu warned. Luoyu smiled and replied, Yes. Thus, he turned around and left with a group of people. After they sat down, Hui Lang asked curiously, Ghost Doctor, how did you kill the monarch of Qishui province? There are many experts in the Qishui Imperial Palace. Did you not attract their attention? How did they manage to kill the monarch of Qishui province without making a sound? Could it be that those people were all asleep? Thinking of this, he was suddenly startled, and a thought flashed through his mind. Oh right, the Ghost Doctor must have used some medicine. As expected, he heard her words. Fengjiu smiled and said, I first asked the Fire Phoenix to put the medicine in the well water they drank. The medicine is colorless and tasteless, and takes effect slowly. Naturally, they did not notice. At night, we sneaked into the Imperial Palace and worked together. In less than 2 hours, we set fire to the Qishui Imperial Palace and hung a few corpses in front of the Imperial Palace to deter other countries. Hui Lang suddenly understood and said, So that's how it is. Guan Shilin on the side smiled and said, What else could it be? Did you think that we would directly kill our way in? If we did that, how many people would we lose? Hee. Hui Lang smiled embarrassedly. No, I definitely did not think that way. Chapter 1730. Don't worry, Ghost Doctor. Master is fine. Hui Lang grinned and replied, It's just that too many things have happened in the past 6 months. So much so that Master seems to be tense all the time. Sometimes he's busy until midnight and doesn't even rest. Then he added, But Ghost Doctor, don't worry. Master hasn't had any other woman by his side in the past 6 months. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. Alright, don't say such nonsense. Then she said to Guan Shilin, After resting for a while, we'll act according to our original plan. No problem, Guan Shilin said, and walked towards the Phoenix Guards who were resting at the back. Seeing this, Hui Lang didn't disturb her anymore. Instead, he sat not far away from her and watched her sit cross-legged to adjust her qi and close her eyes to rest. In the next 2 days, Hui Lang watched Guan Shilin leave with the Phoenix Guards. He couldn't help but come to Fengjiu's side and ask, Ghost Doctor, what are they going to do? Should we go and help? No need, just let them go. Fengjiu, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating, said without opening her eyes. Then when are we going to attack the Dongyao Empire? Hui Lang asked. He had seen her here for the past 2 days. Other than Guan Shilin and the others who made some movements, she had been sitting here without giving any orders. He didn't know when they were going to make a move. Who told you that we're going to attack the Dongyao Empire? Fengjiu glanced at him and asked jokingly. Didn't you? Then what are we doing here? Ghost Doctor, what are you going to do next? At least give me a hint. He looked at her with a bitter face. He had been here with his people all this time, but he didn't know the next order. This feeling was really suffocating. Wait. When the time comes, I'll naturally tell you. Fengjiu stood up and stretched. Since we're free, let's move our muscles and bones. As soon as she finished speaking, she had already raised her fist to attack Hui Lang. Seeing this, Hui Lang quickly retreated. Seeing that she didn't use her spiritual power, he said, Alright then. I'll just be a sparring partner and practice with the Ghost Doctor. If she used her spiritual aura, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move from her. However, if she didn't use her spiritual aura, then that was another matter. Furthermore, he might even be able to learn a move or two from her. Thinking of this, his interest was immediately piqued. He dodged and attacked at the same time. As the two of them exchanged blows in the forest, the surrounding black-clothed men's eyes involuntarily lit up. They all stared at the two's moves. They were more familiar with their leader's skills and were used to seeing their moves. However, the ghost doctor's moves were extremely rare. Now that they saw it, they could tell that there was a huge difference. Her attacks were sharp and aimed at the vital points. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't use any spiritual power, their heads wouldn't have been able to withstand a single attack from her. Seeing these attacks aimed at the vital points, they secretly noted them down. In the palace of Dong Yao, the monarch of Dong Yao narrowed his eyes and glared at the people below. What did you say? You found traces of those people in the mountains behind the imperial palace? Yes, we didn't dare to act rashly and alert the enemy, so we specially came to report to the monarch, the black-clothed man said in a deep voice. Chapter 1731. The black-robed man was silent for a while, then said, No, I didn't see the red-robed young man there, but there was a man with an extraordinary aura. He should be Fengjiu's sworn brother, Guan Shilin. Guan Shilin? Umph. The emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom snorted coldly and ordered with his hands behind his back. Elder Yen, bring some men with you and annihilate them in one fell swoop. Elder Yen was one of the 2 fairy realm experts under him. With him there, it would be easy for him to annihilate Guan Shilin and dozens of phoenix guards. Yes, sir. An old man walked out from the back. His gray robe was inconspicuous, but the aura he exuded was extraordinary. As long as this matter is settled, I will reward you handsomely, the emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom said. Thank you, emperor. Just wait for me to bring the head of Guan Shilin to see you. With that, he cupped his hands and walked out. The emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom looked at the sky outside with his hands behind his back and snorted coldly. Arrogant brat, you overestimate yourself. Let me use you to defeat Fengjiu's spirit. Perhaps it was because they thought that there were only dozens of people from an inferior country. So the emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom, Elder Yen, and even the guards of Dong Yao Kingdom, did not take them seriously. They were fugitives from an extinct country. Even if they had some cultivation, how outstanding could they be? If they were really outstanding, their Phoenix dynasty would not have been destroyed. Elder Yen and the others saw the annihilation of Guan Shilin and his men as a great merit. They would definitely punish them, so that none of them could escape. Listen up, don't let any of them escape, he said to the people behind him. Yes, everyone responded in a deep voice. They had heard that those people only had a few dozen people. But they had 100 people here. Just based on the number of people, they had the upper hand. Not to mention that their strength was stronger than those people from the inferior countries. If they wanted to kill those people, it would not be a problem at all. How could they let them escape? Split up and attack from both sides. Boss Yin waved his hand, indicating for them to move to the sides and surround the dozens of phoenix guards in the back mountain. Thus, the 100 or so guards quickly spread out to the 2 sides. They restrained their auras and moved towards the 2 sides, preparing to surround them. At the same time, Guan Shilin, Du Fan Luoyu, and the other 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards had been waiting for a long time. They held their breaths and listened to the movements. A Phoenix Guard silently flew over to report. Reporting, there are about 100 of them, and they have split into 2 groups to flank us from both sides. The leader of the 2 groups is an old man in the fairy realm. He didn't get too close to us in order to avoid being discovered, so I couldn't see his face clearly. However, he should be one of the 2 fairy realm experts mentioned in the information. Very good, Guan Shilin said, then looked at Du Fan. Is everything ready? Don't worry. Everything is ready. As long as they come in, they won't be able to leave. Du Fan said confidently, fanning himself with the white jade fan in his hand. Hearing this, Guan Shilin looked at Luo Yu and the other 7 captains. Each of you take your small groups and lie in ambush in the formation. Once you see them enter the formation, kill them without mercy. Yes. Chapter 1732. Due to the formation, the back of the mountain was filled with a light smoke. This light smoke was not dense, but it seemed to block some of the vision. When the people of the Eastern Glory Empire stepped into the formation step by step without realizing it, the silent massacre had already begun. The Phoenix Guards held daggers in their hands and appeared out of nowhere in the formation. They covered the other party's mouth with one hand and slit his throat with the other hand holding the dagger. A life disappeared without a sound. The people walking at the back were decreasing one by one, but the people in front did not notice that something was wrong. They only realized that they seemed to be walking in circles in this fog. Did you notice that we seem to be walking in circles? We seem to have walked through this place just now, the leader of the guards said. Could it be that there's a formation here? Also, why do I feel that there's a bloody smell in here? Can't you smell it? The person at the back said. When he turned back to look, a Phoenix Guard suddenly jumped out and stabbed his chest with a dagger. Yes, there's an ambush. The person's breath was stuck in his throat, and he could not swallow it. He stared unwillingly at the person who suddenly jumped out. After saying this, he fell down. There's an ambush. It was unknown who shouted, but the entire team instantly fell into chaos. They quickly gathered together and looked around vigilantly with their backs facing each other. Only then did they realize that their team originally had 50 people, but now less than half of them were left. Damn it! Kill them! The leader could vaguely see the black mass of people scurrying out from the fog. He was startled and yelled, but who knew that as soon as his voice fell, arrows shot out from the surrounding area. Kill them! Don't leave a single one alive! This time, the Phoenix Guards shouted loudly. They did not rush out, but instead shot arrows at them. Countless arrows shot out like a rain of arrows toward the guards who were gathered together. Ah! Shrill cries sounded, startling the birds in the forest, and causing them to flap their wings and fly away. It also shocked Elder Yen, who was not far away, and he had a bad premonition in his heart. Were they their people? Or were they Eastern Glory Empire's people? No, it should be the screams of Guan Shilin and the others. How could a few dozen people be a match for his 100 people? One had to know that there were not many powerhouses among these 100 people. However, although he comforted himself, the uneasiness in his heart still made him not dare to be careless. He walked inside, wanting to see for himself. In the formation, after shooting for a while, the arrows instantly stopped when the order was given. At this time, there were less than 3 of the 50 people left, and these 3 were nascent soul cultivators. Luo Yu Fan Lin and the other captains exchanged glances with Du Fan. Looking at the 3 people, Luo Yu ordered the Phoenix Guards around them. Everyone else, stand back and be on guard. Leave these 3 old things to us. Chapter 1733. Hiss! Ah! A scream was heard, and one person fell down. However, the battle was not over yet. The other Phoenix Guards did not relax. They knew that the reason why their leader did not let them fight, but chose to fight personally, was to minimize their casualties. After all, with their abilities, they could fight against someone at the peak of the Golden Elixir realm, but they were still too weak to fight against someone at the Nascent Soul realm. After half a year of training, Luo Yu and the rest's abilities had improved greatly. They were not afraid of fighting against Nascent Soul realm powerhouses anymore. Together with Du Fan, the 5 of them worked together, and the remaining 2 were quickly eliminated. However, even so, they still suffered some injuries. Although they were not serious, after the battle, their auras were slightly messed up. Retreat! With an order, the Phoenix Guards quickly retreated and rushed to the other side to help. About half an hour after they left, Elder Yen arrived. Looking at the corpses on the ground, his face was gloomy. He clenched his fists so tightly that his veins could be seen. Phoenix Guards! What a team of Phoenix Guards! Just a few dozen of you dared to kill more than 100 of my people. I want to see if you can still stand up straight without fear when facing me, a fairy realm powerhouse. Humph. With a gloomy voice, he waved his hand and rose into the air. When he was in the air, he saw that the ground was filled with smoke, and his vision was not clear. He could only see everything clearly when he scanned the ground with his divine sense. When he scanned the other side with his divine sense, he saw that the people there were also fighting. Moreover, there were the sounds of ferocious beasts. He thought that they must have brought their contracted beasts over. Hence, he quickly rushed to the ground. Before he arrived, his pressure had already enveloped the area. Where is the boy named Guan? If you have the guts, come out and fight with me. The voice, which contained a strong pressure, spread clearly through the back of the mountain. Once the pressure of a fairy realm powerhouse enveloped the area, the auras of the people below became unstable. Ha 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 ha. Old man, your grandfather Guan has been waiting for you for a long time. In the smoke, there was no one, but laughter rang out. The deafening laughter contained a strong dark force aura, which was not inferior to Elder Yan's. Elder Yan's heart shook when he sensed the powerful profound energy aura. He widened his eyes in disbelief as he looked at the boorish man, who was standing in midair within the smoke. You're actually a martial god expert. Even in the 8 great empires, it was extremely rare for a profound practitioner to cultivate to the martial god realm. Moreover, this person was said to be from an inferior country, so how did he cultivate to the martial god realm? The shock and astonishment in his heart collided with each other at this moment. He only felt waves rising from the ground and violently beating against his heart. He, who had originally vowed that he would take the other party's head and present it to the monarch, could not help but have a trace of seriousness at this moment. A martial god expert. He had lived for so many years, but he had never fought with a martial god expert. This was because Xian martial artists cultivated slowly. If they wanted to cultivate to the martial god level, they would need to be old monsters who had lived for hundreds of years. However, the man called Guan Shilin seemed to be in his 20s. How could he not be shocked when he was already a middle-stage martial god at such a young age? At this moment, he felt a little hesitant and uncertain. Chapter 1734. Just as Elder Yan was shocked by Guan Shilin's strength and cultivation, Guan Shilin, who was high up in the air, waved the large blade in his hand. Along with a powerful dark force aura, he charged forward at a speed that was too fast for one to cover their ears. The sharp and cold large blade slashed through the air, bringing with it a swift and fierce aura. Wherever it passed, the wind blades were as terrifying as the howls of ghosts. In just a moment of distraction, Elder Yin saw the broadsword with a frightening murderous aura chopping towards him. Elder Yin abruptly came back to his senses and dodged the attack. At the same time, he flicked his sleeve, and a visible stream of spiritual energy flew out from his sleeve with a whoosh, like a cold crescent moon blade. Whoosh! The spiritual energy stream cut through the air and attacked Guan Shilin. Guan Shilin blocked it with his broadsword, and only a clang was heard. The air blade on the broadsword collided with the stream of spiritual energy and dispersed. The two exchanged blows, and it seemed that they were evenly matched. However, after a long battle, Elder Yan's spiritual energy had been consumed too much. Gradually, his aura became unstable, and the speed of his attacks slowed down inadvertently. Seeing this, Guan Shilin coldly snorted. Like a ferocious tiger, he pounced forward with an irresistible force. He waved his broadsword and shouted, "Old thing, I'm going to take your life today." The deafening sound was accompanied by a powerful force. Elder Yin only felt his eardrums vibrate, and the qi and blood in his body became unstable. A mouthful of blood welled up from his throat, and was about to spit it out, but he forced it down. Seeing Guan Shilin swinging his broadsword at him, and that there was no way to dodge, he took out his longsword, infused it with spiritual energy, and met the attack head-on. Clang! Hiss! The sword and the broadsword collided, and a clear clang was heard. Sparks and hissing sounds were heard from the friction. The Xian Qi and spiritual energy on the two of them fought against each other, forming a visible stream of air to protect their bodies. Kacha! When the sword and saber collided, there was a sudden cracking sound, as if the weapon was about to break. Hearing this sound, Elder Yan's heart shook, especially when he saw the thin crack on the long sword in his hand. His heart was even more shocked. Bang! After a cracking sound, just as old Yan's mind was thrown into chaos, the long sword in his hand was broken, and the tip of the sword flew out with a whoosh. Bang! Without the obstruction of the long sword, the air current directly hit his body. With a bang, Elder Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was ruthlessly sent flying and fell from the air. Boss Yin was shocked. The moment he fell, all he could think of was to escape. However, Guan Shilin did not give him a chance to escape. Instead, he chased after him with his saber and viciously slashed at his back. Swish! Bang! When the blade landed on Elder Yan's body, he thought that it would be enough to kill him. However, a bang was heard from his body, and a ray of light was reflected. It seemed that he had a life-saving spell on him. Guan Shilin took another look, and saw that the back of Elder Yan's shirt was torn. There was not even a drop of blood on his back. Seeing this, Guan Shilin waved his saber again and quickly chased after him. You can't escape. Accept your death obediently. Chapter 1735. Swoosh. Ah! A sharp blade aura was emitted. Immediately after, scarlet blood splattered in the air. Senior Yan, who was fleeing in front, was cleaved into two by the large blade behind him. A mournful scream filled with unwillingness rang out, echoing in the air. Note that the corpse fell from the air, and the scream stopped abruptly. The surroundings seemed to have calmed down at this moment, and even the aura of spiritual energy and dark force in the air gradually disappeared. Guan Shilin leaped down from the air and arrived beside Elder Yan's corpse. He collected the Cosmos bag and space ring on Elder Yan's body, then turned to look at the Phoenix Guard and asked, "How did it go?" "Don't worry, we didn't leave a single survivor," Dufan said. "Then let's proceed with the second step of the plan." Guan Shilin signaled and glanced at Luo Yu and the others. "Okay, we'll act immediately," Luo Yu and the others said. The 8 of them split into 2 groups and left with the Phoenix Guard and Tun Yin to prepare for the second step of the plan. Guan Shilin and Du Fan looked at each other, then left the back of the mountain and headed for the palace. Outside the city, Fengjiu, who had stopped practicing with Hui Lang for a while, looked at the sky gradually darkening and said to them, "Let's go. Didn't you want to stretch your muscles? Now's the time." Everyone's eyes lit up. Were they going to destroy the Eastern Glory Empire? However, there were many strong people in the Eastern Glory Empire. If they went in directly, would they didn't dare to ask. Their eyes fell on Hui Lang, hoping that their leader could ask what the ghost doctor's plan was. Seeing their gazes, Hui Lang hesitated and asked, "Ghost doctor, are we going to kill our way into the palace?" "Why? Are you scared?" Fengjiu glanced at them with a faint smile. "How is that possible?" Hui Lang straightened his back. "Scared? I, Hui Lang, don't know how to spell the word scared." "All right then, let's go. If you're late, you won't be of any use." As she spoke, she took a deep breath and headed toward the palace of Dong Yao. Seeing this, Hui Lang waved his hand. "Follow the ghost doctor. We'll know when we get there." "Yes." Everyone responded and followed behind him. Dong Yao Imperial Palace. What? In the main seat of the palace, the monarch of Dong Yao Empire stood up abruptly. He widened his eyes in shock. "What did you say? Say it again." Our reporting to the monarch, Elder Yan brought 100 people to the back of the mountain. All of them were killed. None of them survived. Even Elder Yan was also split in half. The black-clothed secret guard who was kneeling below said with a trembling voice. He had been ordered to observe the battle from a distance. When he saw that Elder Yan had been killed, he was shocked and immediately returned to report. Too strong. Those people were too strong. A mere few dozen people were actually able to kill all 100 of their experts. Moreover, even Elder Yan, who was at the flying immortal stage, was killed by that burly man. Every time he thought of the scene where Elder Yan was split in half, a chill ran up from the soles of his feet. He was so shocked that his heart trembled and his mind was in a mess. The monarch of Dong Yao Empire stiffened. His face was full of disbelief. He stood there and looked at the black-clothed secret guard kneeling below. He asked, "Was it Fengjiu who killed them? Other than Fengjiu, who else had this ability?" Chapter 1736. Guan Shilin? Fengjiu's sworn brother? The emperor of Dong Yao country asked in shock. How could he kill Elder Yan, who is at the fairy realm? Did you watch carefully? Are there any experts secretly helping them? No. I saw that it was Guan Shilin who cut Elder Yan in half with his sword. There was no one else. Hearing this, the emperor of Dong Yao country fell to the ground, his body trembling unnoticeably. Fengjiu Guanxilin. These Phoenix Guards were really capable. If that was the case then it was too terrifying. Even if they asked for help from other countries now, it would be too far away to put out a nearby fire. Moreover, even if they asked for help, the other two empires would not come immediately. He took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and said in a low voice, "Send someone to the major families in the imperial city. Ask their ancestors and masters to enter the palace to help." Yes, the secret guard in black responded and left quickly. However, since the fall of the Qishui Empire, the news had spread throughout the empires, especially the major families in the imperial cities of the empires that cooperated with the Qishui Empire. They were prepared for it. Although they were not familiar with the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, they had heard many legends about her. Even if they felt that it might be exaggerated, the emperor of Qishui province, the crown prince, and the most favored third princess were killed. Their corpses were hung at the gate of the imperial palace. The Qishui imperial palace was on fire and burned for a day and a night. They were also vigilant. No matter how powerful Fengjiu was, the ancestors of the major families had ordered them not to participate in the matter between the imperial family and Fengjiu. As time passed, evening came. When the sky darkened, a dangerous aura shrouded the entire imperial palace. The major families in Huang City seemed to have sensed something, but none of them came out, until the people sent by the emperor of Dongyao country knocked on the doors of the major families. Not long after they entered, they left again. Just like that, the news secretly spread among the major families, and the ancestors of the major families gathered together. I didn't expect Ghost Dr. Fengjiu to come. Or did they choose Eastern Glory Empire from the remaining 3 empires? According to the secret guards in the palace, a fairy realm expert by the emperor's side led 100 people to fight against a few dozen people. But he was killed just like that. Not a single person survived. Another ancestor said, frowning as he pondered, "I really didn't expect this ghost Dr. Fengjiu to become so strong in just half a year." Hearing this, an ancestor next to him shook his head. "No, I heard that ghost Dr. Fengjiu hasn't made a move yet. The one who killed Elder Yen was ghost Dr. Fengjiu's sworn brother Guanxilin. It seems like the monarch is not confident in dealing with Fengjiu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent people to ask for our help." A white-bearded patriarch stroked his beard and said slowly. He was very curious about this ghost Dr. Fengjiu. What kind of woman was she? How could they force the monarch of such an empire into a corner and ask for help? This kind of thing, if not handled properly, it would bring disaster to the entire clan. Who would dare to help? That's right. Let the imperial family deal with the trouble they caused themselves. Another person shook his head and said, he knew in his heart that Eastern Glory Empire would be the next empire to be destroyed after Qishui Empire. Chapter 1737. Pft! How could the forces in the upper reaches take the empire seriously? Moreover, it's too late to ask for help. It seems like Dong Yao is doomed this time. The few of them sighed and looked at each other without saying a word. In the imperial palace, the emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom stood in the main hall with his hands behind his back with a gloomy face. He listened to the report from the secret guard in black, and his face was so dark that charcoal could drip from it. Those old men were actually dragging their feet, and no one was willing to come forward to help. It seemed like they were afraid of what Fengjiu had done during this period of time. Since they were not willing to help, he could only rely on himself. Pass down the order. Gather all the guards in the imperial palace, and defend the imperial palace. Prepare for battle. Since no one else could save him, he would gather all the forces in the imperial palace and prepare for battle. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with the mere Fengjiu with the strength of Eastern Glory Nation. Yes, the secret guard in black responded and left quickly. Don't worry, Emperor. Since those families are not willing to help, we'll destroy the Xianyuan Empire after we've dealt with Fengjiu and his men. After we've strengthened our empire, we'll weaken the power of those families. An old man walked out from behind. He was the other fairy realm expert beside the emperor of Dong Yao Kingdom. That's right. Those old men stood aside and did nothing today. They'll suffer in the future, the Emperor of Dongyao Kingdom said in a gloomy voice. However, at this moment, a loud bang was heard, as if something had exploded. The entire imperial palace shook, and the Emperor of Dongyao Kingdom was shocked. "What's going on?" he asked loudly. Just then a guard rushed in from the outside. "Emperor, the northern palace wall near the back of the mountain was blown up. Debris rolled and a big hole appeared in the ground. Guan Shilin rushed in with his men, and a few contracted beasts. The situation is out of control. Fengjiu the ghost doctor. Guan Shilin the phoenix guards." What a good phoenix guard. He gritted his teeth in anger and said, "Come with me. I want them to die here." Yes. The Emperor of Dongyao Kingdom walked in front, followed by the gray-robed old man, mini guards and secret guards. Hundreds of people rushed toward the northern gate. Guan Shilin and Du Fan were not among the people who entered the northern gate. Only the 8 phoenix guards and their contracted beasts, such as the fire phoenix, rushed in and fought with the guards in the palace. For a moment, the sounds of swords and beasts' roars echoed in the air. However, just as the Emperor of Dongyao Empire was rushing to the north gate with his men, his palace was on fire. Guan Shilin and Du Fan had looted everything in the treasure vault of the Dongyao Empire's palace and set it ablaze. The fire spread everywhere and thick smoke rose to the sky. When the monarch of Dongyao Empire saw the fire and smoke, he was so angry that his body trembled. "Damn that Fengjiu! How dare you destroy the imperial palace of Dongyao Empire? I will tear you into pieces." At this moment Fengjiu, dressed in a dazzling red robe, led Hui Lang, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang into the palace gate. Looking at the fire, Fengjiu smiled and said to the people behind him, "Let's do it." "Yes," everyone answered. Hui Lang led them to the back of the palace. Chapter 1738. Even in the dark of the night, her red dress was still very dazzling. Her elegant and free figure carried a wildness. Her red dress made a whistling sound in the wind. She was high up in the air, like a fairy from the 9 heavens who came on the breeze. As if they had sensed something, the Emperor of Dongyao Kingdom and the gray-robed elder, who were rushing toward the north gate, stopped at the same time and looked back. When they looked back, they saw the red figure coming from the sky. The young man in a dazzling red dress came from the night sky. His red dress was dazzling, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He was so handsome that it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. His aura was ethereal, but no one dared to look down on him. She appeared to be in her 20s, but the pressure emitted from her body caused people to tremble in fear. As her eyes moved, they felt as if they had nowhere to hide as she swept them with her oppressive gaze. This person was Fengjiu the ghost doctor. It was said that Fengjiu the ghost doctor liked to dress in red. As a woman, she liked to dress in men's clothes. Her beauty was devastating, and her cultivation was mysterious. Who else could it be if not this person in front of them? They originally thought that the rumors were exaggerated, but now they knew why the ghost doctor Fengjiu's name had spread so quickly. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, with such means and courage, let alone a woman, there were not many men in the world who could be compared to her. It was not a loss for the Qishui Empire to be destroyed by her. However, even if the Qishui Empire was destroyed, his Dongyao Kingdom would not be destroyed. No matter how powerful Fengjiu was, he must kill him tonight at all costs. "You two stand down," Fengjiu, who stopped in midair, said to Leng Shuang and Leng Hua behind him. Facing a fairy realm expert, the two of them were unable to withstand the pressure emanating from him. "Yes," the two of them responded, and quickly retreated to a safe distance. The gray-robed elder's gaze fell on Fengjiu. He scanned him with his divine sense, and said to the Emperor of Dongyao Kingdom, "Emperor, Fengjiu is a cultivator at the middle stage of the fairy realm. We can definitely kill him with our combined strength." "Good. Let's kill her first." The Emperor of Dongyao Country had also noticed that the power emanating from Fengjiu's body was that of a fairy realm cultivator. Since both of them were fairy realm cultivators, the two of them would definitely have a chance of winning. Thus, after instructing the others to eliminate the Phoenix guards at the north gate, The two of them gathered their qi and blocked Fengjiu from both sides. Fengjiu, you really don't want to take the path to heaven, but you insist on entering the gates of hell. Today, I want to see what you're capable of. As soon as he finished speaking, a long sword appeared in the monarch's hand. After injecting his spiritual power into it, he instantly attacked Fengjiu. Seeing this, the gray-robed elder gathered a stream of air in his hands and charged towards Fengjiu, preparing to take her down with a pincer attack. However, Fengjiu, who was watching the two approaching from the left and right, curled his lips slightly, revealing a strange and evil smile. Is that so? I'm also very curious to see how many moves you can take from me. With a move of her hand, the Qingfeng sword, which was glowing with a sharp green light, appeared in her hand. Moreover, in the next moment, she no longer concealed her aura. Instead, she displayed her own power and cultivation. Chapter 1739. Celestial Saint Powerhouse. The two of them screamed. When they sensed the pressure and aura of the Celestial Saint Powerhouse, their faces turned pale. How could they still have the will to fight? Quick! Run! They did not even have the will to fight. When they came back to their senses, their first thought was to run. Run as far as they could. The strength of a celestial saint was equivalent to the strength of 100 fairy realm experts. They would have to be crazy to overestimate their own abilities to fight against her. At this moment, they couldn't help but curse loudly. Who is it? Who said that she's only at the nascent soul stage? Run! Fengjiu, who was behind them, curled her lips into a smile. Do you think you can run away? As soon as she finished speaking, the red figure instantly swept toward the gray-robed elder. As the red figure swept past him, the gray-robed elder, who was originally running away in a panic, stiffened and fell from midair. Bang! No one saw how she had acted. She did not even need to fight, as she had easily ended the life of a fairy realm master. The body of the gray-robed old man, who had fallen to the ground, twitched. His eyes were fixed on the sky, until he breathed his last. When the Emperor of Eastern Glory Kingdom heard the commotion, he turned around abruptly. When he saw that the gray-robed elder's neck was bleeding as he breathed his last, his whole body trembled. Since they had cultivated to the fairy realm, death was already something that was very far away from them. However, when death loomed over them at such a close distance, he suddenly realized that death was not far away from them all this time. When he saw the red-robed Fengjiu coming toward him with the Qingfeng sword, many things flashed through his mind. In the end, he did not run away. Instead, he fell from midair and knelt on the ground. Don't kill me. I'll serve you as my master. When he said this, his eyes were filled with terror and fear. Yes, he was afraid of death. At his level of cultivation, he was even more afraid of death. He had everything that many people would never be able to obtain in their entire lives: power, status, fame, and fortune. He did not want to die like this. He did not want his royal family to be slaughtered. Therefore, he could only lower his head and beg Fengjiu, because he knew that this was his only way out. Only in this way could he have a chance to survive. His Dongyao empire would not be destroyed in his hands, and would not fall into chaos like Qi Shui. The emerald-edged sword was pressed against the forehead of the Eastern Glory monarch, who was kneeling on the ground. As long as it was an inch closer, it could easily take his life. However, the emerald-edged sword in Fengjiu's hand suddenly stopped. She looked at him and raised her eyebrows. What did you say? I said, I'm willing to serve you as my master. I, Dongyao, am willing to listen to your orders. I only beg you to spare Dongyao and spare my life. I will go through fire and water for you and be loyal to you. As he spoke, as if he was afraid that she would not believe him, he immediately made a heaven and earth contract to serve her as his master. Seeing the light of the heaven and earth contract dissipate, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. He stared at the monarch for a long time. After a long time, he moved the emerald-edged sword in his hand away. He stretched out his finger and tapped the monarch's forehead to extract a strand of consciousness. Fine. Since you serve me as your master, I'll spare your life. However, you must remember that from this moment on, your life and your Dongyao empire are in my hands. You have to obey my orders. Chapter 1740. Thus, Fengjiu brought him to the sky above the north gate. Looking at the people fighting below, she said, "Everyone stop!" Her voice, which contained the might of a celestial saint, came down from the sky like a huge net, causing everyone below to stop. At this time, the people of Dongyao Empire had already suffered countless casualties. Everyone raised their heads and was surprised when they saw the Emperor of Dongyao Empire, who was respectfully following behind Fengjiu. The Phoenix Guards and the others looked at each other and stepped forward to bow. "Greetings, Master." Fengjiu responded and said, "From today onwards, Dongyao Empire belongs to me, Fengjiu." Hearing this, the guards of Dongyao Empire below were in an uproar. They were somewhat in disbelief, but after thinking about it carefully, they felt that it was reasonable. These Phoenix Guards were so strong that just a few dozen of them could deal with more than 100 of them. Moreover, there was also the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, who could easily kill a fairy realm expert by herself. If the Eastern Yao Empire were to join her forces, it would only be beneficial to them. At least, they would no longer have to worry that ghost Dr. Fengjiu would attack them again. "Hurry up and kneel!" The Emperor of Dongyao Empire shouted behind Fengjiu. Hearing this, the people of Dongyao Empire hurriedly knelt down. At this time, they were either injured or dead. There were less than 1/3 of them left. Moreover, the palace was set on fire and scattered in all directions. It would probably take a few months for it to recover to its original state. On the other side, after hearing Fengjiu's voice, Guan Shilin, Hui Lang, and the others looked at each other and quickly stopped fighting. They brought their men over. When they arrived at the north gate, they were actually a little surprised when they saw the scene. With Fengjiu's strength today, it should not be difficult for him to destroy Dongyao Empire, but she took it under her force. They just did not know if they would really submit to her after killing so many people of Dongyao Empire. At the same time, the people of the major families outside the palace looked at the rising flames in the palace and could not help but sigh. They thought that Dongyao Empire might really be finished just like that. However, who knew that soon, another piece of news came. "What? The Emperor has submitted to ghost Dr. Fengjiu?" An ancestor of a family widened his eyes in astonishment. "Yes, he has also made a heaven and earth contract to serve ghost Dr. Fengjiu as his master," the secret guard reported. "Hiss! Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the monarch would make such a decision?" Another old ancestor gasped and murmured. The great ancestor beside him stroked his beard and said, "There's nothing wrong with that. Surrendering to ghost Dr. Feng 9 and protecting Dongyao Nation is something anyone would do." Ancestor of the ancestor. That's right. Compared to the extermination of one's clan, what was wrong with submitting to another and worshipping the strong as their master? The most important thing was protecting. They wanted Dongyao's Dongyao Empire. "Search. Let's see what we'll do next." One of the patriarchs waved his hand and gestured for the secret guard to leave. "He ancestor emperor, the ancestor family guard ancestor. Left is ancestor. The others nodded one after another. Not only is she not simple, she has great strength and can destroy the royal family with a raise of her hand. She is also tolerant. Her breadth of mind is indeed not something that ordinary people can compare to. Chapter 1741. The few of them looked at each other and did not speak. They had not fought with Fengjiu before, so they naturally did not know her strength. However, to be able to force the Emperor of Dongyao Heavenly Country to submit to her, it was clear that she was not simple. In the main hall of Dongyao Palace, Guan Shilin, Du Fan, and the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards stood on the left and right sides. Lung Shuang and Lung Hua stood on the left and right sides of the main seat. Sitting on the main seat was Fengjiu, who was dressed in a dazzling red robe. She reclined in her seat and supported her face with one hand. She looked at the Emperor of Dongyao Empire, who was standing in the middle of the hall, and said slowly, "Since you have acknowledged me as your master, I will leave the rest to you." The Emperor of Dongyao Heavenly Country gulped and asked, "Please enlighten me. I will leave the remaining 2 empires to you. In a month, I want these 2 empires to disappear," she said in a low voice. Hearing this, The emperor of Dongyao Heavenly Country was shocked. A month? How can you do it in a month? The distance between these two empires is also quite far. Can't you do it? She glanced at him and asked slowly. Seeing her gaze on him, the emperor of Dongyao Heavenly Country quickly lowered his head and said, Yes, I will definitely do it within a month. I will not let you down. Brother, bring some people and help him. In a month, I want these two empires to disappear. Fengjiu looked at Guan Shilin and said, No problem. Guan Shilin replied loudly and accepted the task. Hearing this, the emperor of Dongyao Heavenly Country was overjoyed. That's great. With Guan Shilin's help, it would be easier to get things done. Fengjiu thought for a while and said, Bring Tun Yun and Lao Bai with you too. Let them have more experience, and have a good rest today. You are dismissed. Yes. Everyone responded and walked out. Only Guan Shilin stayed behind. Xiaojiu, aren't you afraid that there will be problems in the future if you take over Dongyao? Guan Shilin asked what he was worried about. After all, only the emperor of Eastern Glory Nation had signed the heaven and earth contract. It's fine, she smiled and said. With this lesson, they won't dare to be enemies with us even if we don't make a contract with heaven and earth. Moreover, there are some benefits to taking over Dongyao. At least, many things are now for Dongyao. If they really dare to have second thoughts, it won't be too late to destroy them in the future. Since you said so, then let's do it. Guan Shilin sat down and said, Leave the rest to us. Are you going to the Xianyuan Empire first? Mose must be very anxious from waiting. Let's go and see if there are any other problems with him. After helping him deal with this matter, I'm going to the upper continents. She looked outside with a deep gaze, unable to forget the scene of her home and family being destroyed. All right, don't worry. Leave everything else to me, he said in a deep voice. Fengjiu nodded and looked at him with a smile. I'll bring Hui Lang and Leng Shuang to the Xianyuan Empire tomorrow. If there's anything, you can contact us again. Hearing this, Guan Shilin responded, All right, I understand. That night, the people of Dongyao Empire were bandaging their wounds and recuperating. The Phoenix guards and the others had already settled down in the resting area. Only 2 guards were left to rest. Chapter 1742. Xianyuan Empire. Xuanyuan. Mose looked at the white-robed man standing in front of him with a gentle smile on his face, looking like an immortal. He couldn't help but frown. What are you doing here? His tone didn't hide his dislike and disdain for the man. This man always casually appeared in front of the woman he loved. He didn't have a good impression of him since the first time they met. In his opinion, this man always stuck to his woman's side and was an eyesore. Mo Chen's handsome face had a gentle smile on it. He looked at Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting in front of the desk in a black robe. He hadn't seen him for half a year, but the aura of a king on his body had become even sharper. He exuded a domineering aura that didn't make him angry. Mo Chen couldn't help but sigh. The Emperor Star was indeed the Emperor Star. Don't worry, I'm not here to look for you. I'm here to wait for Fengjiu. He walked slowly to a chair and sat down. He picked up the teacup on the table, but there was no tea. He said to Ying Yi, who was hiding in the shadows. Ying Yi, get someone to bring me a cup of tea. I haven't even had a drink on the way here. Ying Yi glanced at Mo Chen, who was acting as if he was in his own house, and then looked at his master, whose face was dark. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Ying Yi flashed out and asked someone to make 2 cups of tea. He personally brought them in, placing 1 cup on his master's table and the other beside Mo Chen's chair. Then you should know that she's not here. Xianyuan Mose took a sip of the tea, but his face was still dark. A man, and a man who looked like a pretty boy, came to tell you that he was here to wait for your woman. One could imagine how he felt. He knew that his woman was very popular. If he was not careful, anyone would target her. However, so many things had happened in the past 6 months. The 2 of them had not seen each other for more than half a year. Moreover, the 2 of them had always been apart more than together. It was no wonder that he felt a sense of crisis. Mo Chen nodded. Yes, I know she's not here, but she should be back soon, so I'm waiting for her here. He had a gentle smile on his face as he glanced at Xianyuan Mo's, and took a sip of his tea. Then he said unhurriedly, "Moreover, I plan to stay by her side this time. After settling the matter here, I think she will want to go to the upper continent. It just so happens that I'm familiar with that place. With me by her side, you don't have to worry too much." Ingi stood to the side and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He felt that the temperature in the palace seemed to have dropped a bit, and there was a murderous aura in the air, which made him feel extremely nervous standing here. This young master Emo-chun, was he purposely trying to stir up trouble? Wasn't he worried that his master would kill him in a fit of anger? However, speaking of which, who was stronger between the two of them? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look back and forth between the two of them, secretly guessing. Young Master Emo-chun came from a family in the upper continent. It was said that his family had an extraordinary position there, and he was also the disciple of Tianji Elder. His background was not inferior to his master's at all. Chapter 1743. Is that so? Then this monarch would like to see if you have the qualifications to say such words. As soon as he finished speaking, the teacup lid in his hand instantly shot out towards Emo-chun. Emo-chun, who had been drinking his tea, raised his head to look at him and revealed a warm smile. "I'm very willing to accompany you." As he spoke, he raised his hand and turned it. The teacup lid that was flying towards him stopped in front of him and did not advance any further. Instead, it spun in midair. Following the movement of his hand, the teacup slowly fell into his hand, easily neutralizing Xianyuan Mo's attack. "A teacup with a lid. I already have one, so I'll return this to you." A warm voice rang out, but the teacup lid in his hand was extremely fierce. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo stretched out 2 fingers to catch the teacup lid and placed it back on the teacup. Then he stood up, and with a flash of his black figure, he had already rushed out. Seeing this, Emo-chun put down the teacup in his hand. With a refined smile on his face, he slowly walked out. Looking at Xianyuan Mo, who was standing outside the palace, he smiled and said, "I've just arrived, and you're already attacking me. That's not very kind of you. This monarch has already treated you to tea. What's wrong? Not very kind. Since it's like this monarch will give you another greeting gift after not seeing you for so long." As soon as the deep and magnetic voice rang out, the black figure rushed out and attacked Emo-chun, who was standing with his hands behind his back. Emo-chun's spiritual aura was released in an instant. His white robes fluttered, and his black hair fluttered. Facing Xianyuan Mo's attack, he was not alarmed or fearful. Instead, he was as calm as before, and a warm smile hung on his face. It wasn't until Xianyuan Mo's black silhouette was right in front of him that he finally made his move. The 2 silhouettes, one black and one white, were exchanging blows outside the palace. A powerful aura surged from both of their bodies. Although they were fighting barehanded, every strike made the shadow guards and Ing-yi, who were hiding in the shadows, fearful. This was a battle between experts. There were no weapons in their hands, but the aura that permeated the surroundings was so powerful. The aura of the 2 people seemed to be equally matched, and the pressure they exuded couldn't tell which one was stronger. Their speed was extremely fast, and with the strength of Ing-yi and the others, they simply couldn't see their moves. They could only see one black and one white, neither giving way to the other. Bang! Ing-yi's eyes widened as he saw his master suddenly turn his palm into a fist and punch Emo-chun in the eye. Emo-chun drew in a sharp breath, and hurriedly covered his eye and retreated. When he moved his eyes away, there was a red bruise around his left eye. The red bruise did not match his fairy-like appearance at all. It looked a little strange, and people who saw it could not help but smile. "You dare to slap me in the face?" Emo-chun's gentle face cracked, and the smile on his lips could no longer be maintained. Xianyuan Mo calmly glanced at him, and curled his lips in a good mood. "Ben-jun only added some color to your eye. It's much more pleasing to the eye this way." Emo-chun's mouth twitched. "So that's how it is. Then I really have to thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, he attacked again. "No need to thank me. This is what Ben-jun should do." He had wanted to beat him up for a long time, but one punch was too little, and if he hit the other eye, it should be enough. Chapter 1744. N. Pooh. With a groan, he spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered backwards. Imo-chan was stunned, as if he had not expected this to happen. He should have been able to dodge that attack, but why did he pull back his fist in an instant? Also, although his palm had hit him, he had held back 70% of his strength. He knew that the power of that palm was not enough to make him spit out blood. Just as he was puzzled, he heard a familiar voice with a cry of surprise. He instinctively turned his head, and when he saw a red figure flitting past him like the wind, he finally understood. Zay. Fungjio supported him as he fell. She saw that his face was pale, but he was still holding on. When he saw her, he revealed a surprised expression, and his deep eyes could not hide the joy and affection. Ajioda, just as he spoke, his entire body fell into her arms, as if he had fainted. Zay. She supported him, and did not ask why Imo-chan was here. She immediately carried Xianyuan Mose in her arms, and walked towards his chambers. Ing-yi, who was hiding in the shadows, was speechless. He did not expect his master to suddenly do this. This completely overturned his understanding of his master. So when his master was two-faced, he could be like this immediately. He came out from the shadows, glanced at Imo-chan, and quickly followed. Hui Lang, who had followed behind Fungjio, was also dumbfounded when he saw this scene. He originally wanted to quickly step forward to help support his master, but who knew that Lung Hua beside him would pull him back. Then he saw the ghost doctor directly carry his master. It was undeniable that when he saw his master, who had an imposing appearance and a domineering aura, being carried in a princess carry by the ghost doctor to the bedroom, he was really a little confused. This ghost doctor had been pretending to be a man for too long. Did she forget that she was a woman? In this world, how could a woman directly carry a man in a princess carry? Perhaps his master was very happy, very satisfied, and very enjoyable. But he felt that it was very strange just by looking at it. Lung Shuang looked expressionless, but the gentleness in her eyes and the smile on her face could not be deceived. On the other hand, Lung Hua laughed. Master's temperament is so direct. Yama Lord hasn't seen Master for so long. He must miss you very much. As he spoke, he looked at Imo-chan, who was standing in front of him in a white robe, and slowly walked forward. Imo-chan was still in a state of shock. Seeing Fungjio directly carry Xianyuan Mose in his arms was far more impactful than seeing Xianyuan Mose's scheming. He never knew that women could be like this, directly carrying a man by the waist. That scene was very strange, but it seemed so natural for the two of them, without any sense of disharmony. From that scene, he saw that Fungjio attached great importance to Xianyuan Mose. She didn't care about the opinions of others. She only had eyes for him. That kind of deep love expressed in her body language made him, as a bystander, feel a little uncomfortable. But he also knew that if there was such a woman who loved him deeply, perhaps he would be like Xianyuan Mose just now, and use some scheming to win the beauty's pity and tenderness. But when the person being schemed against was him, his mood wasn't very good. Chapter 1745. Hearing this voice, Imo-chan came back to his senses. Looking at the gentle youth in front of him, he smiled and asked, Say, if I went to visit Xianyuan Mose now, would your master be unhappy? Lung Hua smiled and said, If young Master Imo-chan is worried that my master will be unhappy, you can go later. Hearing this, Imo-chan shook his head. How can I do that? If I go later, the misunderstanding will get worse. Even if she is unhappy now, I still think it's better to go and clear things up. Saying this, he nodded slightly at him, and walked towards the bedroom at the back. Seeing this, Lung Hua's smile deepened, but he stopped and did not follow. Let's go. Let's tidy up first. Lung Hua walked over from behind, and said to Lung Hua, All right. Lung Hua replied with a smile and left with her. Hui Lang scratched his head, and looked at them for a while. He muttered something, and then walked towards the bedroom at the back. As for Xianyuan Mose, who was being carried by Fungjio to the bedroom, he attracted the attention of countless people along the way. No matter if it was the palace guards or maids, or the hidden guards hidden in the shadows, when they saw this scene, they were all dumbfounded. Most of the guards and maidservants in the palace did not recognize Feng Nine. Therefore, when they saw their noble and dignified crown prince being intimately carried to his bedchamber by a man in red, they all whispered to each other, "Who is that? Heavens! Am I seeing things? I actually saw His Highness being carried by a man. But that man in red is really handsome. He doesn't look strong, but he easily carried His Highness the Crown Prince. But doesn't His Highness the Crown Prince dislike people getting close to him? How dare this person? What's wrong with His Highness the Crown Prince? It looks like he fainted. What do you know? That's the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. She's a woman, and is said to be our Crown Prince's wife. They're just short of marriage." Ah, really? Why didn't such a big piece of news spread? Many people know about this. Moreover, our Crown Princess isn't an ordinary person. News has spread that Chishui province was destroyed by our Crown Princess. The one who spoke was a guard. He raised his head and puffed out his chest as he spoke to the crowd. A white-clothed young master just passed by. Who was that? I don't know about that. But to be able to move around in the palace, he definitely isn't an ordinary person. Look, that person is heading in the direction of the Crown Prince's bedroom. Perhaps he's heading for the Crown Prince and our Crown Princess. After a while, Hui Lang walked over from behind and heard their conversation. He glanced at them and said, "What are you talking about? Aren't they all gone now?" When they saw Hui Lang, they lowered their heads and hurriedly dispersed. Hui Lang shook his head and looked at the figure in front of him. After thinking for a while, he felt that it would be better to talk to Yingyi first. In the bedroom, Fengjiu put Xianyuan Mose on the big bed. Just as he was about to take his pulse, he saw that the person who had just closed his eyes woke up. "I'm fine." As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he looked at her in front of him. His deep eyes were filled with pity as he said, "You've lost weight." As he spoke, he reached out and touched her face. Chapter 1746. Don't worry, it's just a small injury. Don't blame Mo Chun. He didn't expect you to suddenly come, cough cough cough. Xianyuan Mose coughed a few times as he spoke. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed with a trace of a smile, but she didn't show it. She just nodded seriously. "Yes, don't worry, I won't blame him. I think he didn't mean it." Xianyuan Mose, who had one hand clenched into a fist by his lips, was stunned when he heard this. He instinctively looked up and happened to see her teasing gaze. He couldn't help but feel embarrassed and gently coughed. "You must be tired from the journey, right? Do you want to rest?" As he spoke, he shifted his body on the bed to make room for her. "No, I'm worried about your injury. No matter what, I have to boil some medicine or something to drink," Fengjiu said while holding back her laughter. Xianyuan Mose's mouth twitched. He felt like he had shot himself in the foot. In a flash, he saw that she was already holding his hand and taking his pulse. Seeing this, he could only let her take his pulse. Not long after, Fengjiu withdrew her hand and said, "There's nothing wrong with your body, just that your liver is a little hot. You didn't rest well, you need to rest more." As she spoke, she pulled the blanket up and covered him. "You rest well here, I'll go out and talk to Mo Chun." "What's there to talk about with him? Are you close to him?" he asked with a hint of jealousy in his voice. Fengjiu rested her chin on one hand and thought for a while. "Yes, I'll go out and ask him why he hurt you. I can't let you get hurt for nothing, right?" Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose reached out and pulled her onto the bed. He lifted the blanket and covered her with it. He bent his arm, and she lay in the crook of his arm. He then reached out and hugged her tightly with both hands. "That person isn't a good person. Stay away from him in the future." Fengjiu chuckled. "Stay away from him in the future, lest you get hurt by him again. I went easy on him. Otherwise, how could he be my opponent?" He snorted softly, but the corners of his lips curled up. He hugged the person in his arms and revealed a satisfied smile. Perhaps it was because he hadn't had a good rest recently, but he soon fell asleep while hugging Fengjiu. Feeling his steady breathing, Fengjiu smiled, nestled in his arms and closed his eyes. After not seeing him for so long, she missed him very much. She just didn't expect him to do this as soon as they met. It really made her angry and amused. Outside, Mo Chun, who had just entered the palace, was stopped by Ingyi. Ingyi looked at him, his voice flat. Young Master Imo-chun, my master and the ghost doctor are resting. Please come back later, young Master Imo-chun. Hearing this, Imo-chun's eyes flashed with surprise. He glanced inside and smiled. That's fine. He didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. Not long after, Huilang walked over. Just as he was about to enter, he saw Ingyi walk out. He waved his hand and called out with a grin. Ingyi, I'm back. Ingyi glanced at him. I saw you. How is Master? How did he get hurt by young Master Imo-chun? Is he all right? As he spoke, he stretched his head to look inside the palace to see if there was any sign of the ghost doctor. Chapter 1747. Oh, that's right, you must not have received the news. Huilang grinned. Even if you did, you wouldn't be as fast as us. Come, let's sit over there and I'll tell you. He put an arm around his shoulder and walked towards the stone chair in front. Let me tell you, Dong Yao has submitted to the ghost doctor. The two sat by the stone chair with a pot of tea and 2 plates of desserts. They talked about the submission of the Dong Yao Empire. In the evening, Fengjiu got up first and left the room. When she saw Ingyi and Huilang waiting outside, she asked, Ingyi, how is the monarch's health? Has he gotten better recently? Ghost doctor. The monarch has taken the medicine sent by the ghost doctor. His health has improved, but he still can't cultivate. Hearing this, she nodded and said to Huilang, Come with me to take a look. Okay. Huilang replied and walked out with her. The two of them went outside. After walking for a short distance, they saw Imo-chun, who was dressed in white and looked like an immortal, standing under a tree. It was unknown what she was looking at. Grey Wolf's mouth twitched when he saw this. He felt that Imo-chun had purposely come here to be a high-grade ghost doctor. Fengjiu saw this and stopped in her tracks. She looked at the person by the tree and slowly walked up to him. What are you looking at? Imo-chun looked at her and smiled elegantly. I'm looking at the birds on the tree. He was originally a gentleman, but unfortunately, on his handsome and gentle face, there were dark circles around his eyes, and blood was faintly visible. Seeing this, Feng Nine couldn't help but smile and pointed at his eyes. Why don't you find some medicine to apply? Walking out with such a swollen eye, he wasn't afraid of ruining his image as young Master Imo-chun. I left it on purpose, so that you could see how heavy-handed Xianyuan Mo's was, he said helplessly. I didn't even provoke him. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and took out a bottle of medicine from his sleeve. This medicine has the effect of promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis. Apply some tonight, and you'll be fine tomorrow morning. I won't say thank you. He took the medicine and put it away. Fengjiu shrugged. I'm going to see the monarch. Excuse me. I'll go with you. As he spoke, he looked at her, who was looking at him with raised eyebrows, and said, I also just arrived at the Xianyuan Palace today. I exchanged a few blows with Xianyuan Mo's, but I haven't paid a visit to the Xianyuan monarch yet. I'll go with you. All right, let's go then. She walked forward, gesturing for Huilang to lead the way. Ingyi, who was not far away, watched silently until their figures disappeared into the horizon. Then he retracted his gaze and walked inside. When Xianyuan Mo's woke up, he saw that Fengjiu, who was beside him, was already gone. He got out of bed and stretched. He felt that his sleep was very comfortable and deep, and the fatigue in his body seemed to have lessened quite a bit. When he walked out, he saw that Ingyi was waiting outside, but Fengjiu was nowhere to be seen. He asked, Where is she? Master, the ghost doctor went to the monarch's place, Ingyi reported. How long has she been gone? He looked at the sky and asked. About the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Huilang accompanied her, but halfway there, they met young Master Imo-chun, and seemed to have gone together, Ingyi said. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's raised his eyebrows and walked out, heading straight for his imperial father's palace. Chapter 1748. How is it? Is it going to be like this from now on? You can tell me directly, the Emperor of Xianyuan said as he looked at Fengjiu, who was dressed in red. Fengjiu smiled faintly and said, Don't worry. Although it is crippled, it can be cured. Seeing that the Emperor of Xianyuan did not seem to believe her, she said, "It's true. I'm not lying to you. You just need some time to recover. After you recover, you will have to restart your cultivation." Hearing this, the Emperor of Xianyuan was in disbelief. His body trembled slightly as he asked, "Really? He could still cultivate?" "Really?" Fengjiu nodded affirmatively. But my Dantian. It's fine. It can be repaired." She smiled and said, "I will stay here for a period of time to help you recuperate. You don't have to worry. I will first prepare some medicine for you to consume. Then, I will help you refine a pill that can repair your Dantian." As she said this, she flipped her hand and waved the badge in her hand. "Trust me, I'm not lying." Hearing this, the Emperor of Xianyuan felt his eyes heat up. He felt like he was going to cry. Only after experiencing it personally did he understand the pain of being crippled from a powerful cultivator to a mortal who could not cultivate. Because his cultivation had been crippled, his original appearance had also changed greatly. His entire person had aged overnight, and he had become so weak that it seemed like he could die at any moment. This experience was worse than death. Now, after hearing Fengjiu's words and seeing the 2 elixirs and the badge that she had given him to ease his mind, his heart was rekindled with hope. Thank you. Thank you." He held Fengjiu's hand and thanked her in a choked voice. "This is what I should do." Fengjiu smiled and said, "Have a good rest. We will take our leave first. Once the medicine is prepared, we will come back." As they spoke, Xianyuan Mose walked in. He looked at his father who was holding Fengjiu's hand and instructed the palace servants, "Help the emperor to rest. Don't let him get too excited." "Yes." The palace servants replied respectfully and helped the emperor of Xianyuan into the room. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom looked at him and nodded without saying anything else. After the 3 of them left the bedroom, Fengjiu, who was in the middle, was deep in thought. He said to Xianyuan Mose, "I heard from Hui Lang that there are many thousand-year-old herbs in the Xianyuan Palace's medicine. Take me to see them. If there are suitable herbs, we can make medicine." When Emochin heard this, he said to Fengjiu, "Mose, you two to go. I will go back first. Also, if there are any herbs that they don't have here that you need, you can look for me. Who knows, I might be able to help." Xianyuan Mose glanced at him and said, "You should take care of yourself first. I don't think you can take out anything that I don't have here." As he spoke, he held Fengjiu and walked forward. Fengjiu turned around and smiled apologetically at him. When they were far away, he said to Xianyuan Mose, "I feel that your attitude towards him is not very friendly." "Yes, because I think he is too much of an eyesore," he said in a muffled voice. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. "Why is he an eyesore? I think he is very pleasing to the eye. He is handsome and has an outstanding aura. How is he an eyesore?" Chapter 1749. Hearing this, the corners of Fengjiu's mouth twitched. All right. This vinegar jar was overturned. No matter how he looked at it, it was an eyesore. The 2 of them chatted as they arrived at the medicine storehouse. When they entered, Xianyuan Mose sat to the side and said to Fengjiu, "The herbs you need should be in here. Take whatever you need. There's a label on each box." "And I understand," Fengjiu responded. His gaze swept across the rows of boxes, sweeping across the names of the herbs. Xianyuan Mose watched her pick the herbs and said, "The herbs that are more than 500 years old are on the left. There are also a dozen thousand-year herbs on the top row." Fengjiu pulled open the boxes and took out the herbs to look. He put away the ones that were suitable. He then made 2 packets of herbs and handed them to Xianyuan Mose. "Before I make the medicine, boil this for your imperial father. Boil 2 bowls of water until it's half full." Xianyuan Mose took a look and asked, "Is it done?" "And we can go now." "Then let's go. I've already asked someone to make your favorite dishes. It's getting late, so everything should be ready." He stepped forward and took her hand, leading her away. The guards of the medicine storehouse locked the doors again and stood guard by the door. When they were outside, Xianyuan Mose handed the 2 packets of herbs to Ying Yi and gave him some instructions. Then he and Fengjiu went to the palace. When they arrived, they saw that someone had already ordered food to be served. Invite Emochin to eat with us. Fengjiu looked at him with a smile. He's a guest, how can we be rude? Xianyuan Mose originally wanted to say something, but when he saw her smiling eyes looking at him, he didn't say anything and just sat there. When Leng Hua, who was standing behind Fengjiu, saw this, he smiled and said, "Then I'll invite him." Then he turned around and left. Looking at the table full of her favorite dishes, Fengjiu couldn't help but feel hungry. These days, if she wasn't cultivating, she was on the road, so she rarely had the chance to eat her favorite food. Now that she saw a table full of her favorite foods, she felt extremely warm. This is spiritual wine, drink a small cup and taste it. Xianyuan Mose poured her a small cup of spiritual wine and gestured for her to taste. Fengjiu looked at the half-filled wine cup, and the corner of his mouth twitched. How can you taste anything with so little wine? How about a bigger cup? Hearing this, he glanced at her. Aren't you afraid of getting drunk? The after effect of this wine is very strong. Hearing this, she raised her eyebrows. Strong alcohol? Let me try it. She picked up the wine cup and smelled it. The rich aroma of the wine wafted to her nose, mixed with a strong spiritual aura. Just by smelling the wine, she knew that this was an excellent wine. She took a small sip, and the mellow aroma of the wine spread from the tip of her tongue. The spiritual aura flowed down her throat with the wine and spread throughout her body. With just a small sip, her entire abdomen warmed up. How is it? Xianyuan Mose's deep black eyes fell on her face, and a trace of a smile flashed across his eyes. Looking at her expression, he knew that she was extremely satisfied with the wine. It's very strong, there won't be a burning sensation, but it's different once it enters the stomach. Fengjiu said, and took another sip before putting down the wine cup. Did he say that the after effect of this wine was very strong? With just 2 small sips, her entire body warmed up. This after effect was even stronger than the wine in her space. Chapter 1750. Hearing this voice, Fengjiu looked up. You're here? Come and sit. We were just talking about this spiritual wine. As he spoke, Fengjiu poured a small cup for him. Try it, this wine is really strong. I only took a small sip, and I felt my whole body warming up. Oh, then I'll have to try it. Emochin sat down beside Fengjiu and took a sip of the wine, then nodded. Not bad, this should be an aged wine. Xianyuan Mose glanced at him, his gaze falling on his eyes that were still stained with blood. He felt strangely happy, and said, Why didn't you apply medicine to your eyes? The color seems to have darkened quite a bit. Hearing this, Emochin looked at him and smiled. I did, and it was Fengjiu's ointment. It's very cold. I was thinking of applying another layer at night when I rest. As he spoke, he paused and looked at Fengjiu. The ghost doctor's ointment is very precious. I have to use it sparingly, and keep the rest as a souvenir. Seeing the two bickering, Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly, and said to them, Come, eat quickly before the food gets cold. As he spoke, he put some food into Xianyuan Mose's bowl. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose's expression softened, but he didn't argue with Emochin. Instead, he put some food into Fengjiu's bowl. Knowing that she liked to eat salt and pepper prawns, he peeled a few for her. Seeing her greedily signal Leng Shuang to pour more wine, he said to her, Don't drink too much wine. Eat something to fill your stomach first. Emochin watched from the side, a trace of surprise flashing through his calm eyes. That's right, he never thought that the mighty Xianyuan Mose, who had always been in a position of power, who emitted a powerful and domineering aura from head to toe, would be so gentle and considerate towards the woman he loved. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that he would do something as simple as peeling the shrimp. He could not help but feel a little envious when he saw that the two of them did not need to speak much to communicate with each other. The two of them didn't talk much. Fengjiu was in charge of eating, while Xianyuan Mose was in charge of picking vegetables and peeling the shells. That kind of warm and natural happiness overflowed. Even a bystander like him could feel the warmth between the two of them. At this moment, he closed his eyes and slowly ate the food with his chopsticks. What he was thinking was that for a cultivator, life was too long. How lucky was Xianyuan Mose to be able to meet a person who is in love with you for the rest of your life. Emo-chan, I haven't asked you why you're here. Is something the matter? Fengjiu looked at Emo-chan, who was eating, and asked. He had already abstained from eating, so he only tasted the dishes on the table. However, she was different from him. Even though she had already abstained from eating, she still preferred to eat grains and meat. Just like the dishes on the table, the rice was spirit rice, the vegetables were spirit vegetables, and even the meat was spirit birds. Hearing this, Emo-chan looked at them and said, Yes, there is something. As he spoke, he put down his chopsticks and took a sip of wine. Then he said unhurriedly, This time, I'm here to follow you. After you're done with your business here, you should be going to the upper continents, right? I can accompany you. No need. I'll accompany her when the time comes. Xian Yuanmo said. He glanced at him and knew that this person was here to cause trouble. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.